Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are starting a reading vlog. I am actually kind of excited about this reading vlog. I've done something similar to this before. In this reading vlog, we are going to be doing a dedicated vlog and review for a new release. This is something that I would like to do more of. For a couple reasons. One, books are super fucking expensive. The book that I have was like $32.99. I am a member of like the Millionaires Club, so I got it like slightly cheaper, but books are really expensive. And I know many of you are not buying books unless you know for sure what it's about, if it's something that's up your alley or not. And maybe my review and other people's reviews might help you come to a decision whether or not you want to invest your time or your money into this particular book. Second of all, I need to be better about reading books on my shelves, especially newer releases. I personally sometimes buy into hype, so I might as well read them when other people are reading them so I have like a better chance of enjoying it. And in general, like even if I don't like a book, I think having the time to read is like the best thing ever. Again, even if the book ends up being 2 stars, I will never say it's a waste of time to read. Reading is great. I know that other people have different standards of what is or is not like a spoiler, but I would never give major plot points ahead. I would always like warn you ahead of time if I'm going to say something that might be kind of revealing, but in general, no spoilers. If you want to skip over the vlog portion, you just want to see my full thoughts, I guess, for like just the review part, I will put a timestamp somewhere like down below so you can just skip over. But if you are interested in one-eyed pugs named Pugsley, you might be in for a surprise because I have one of them. I think that's pretty much it. So the book that we are going to read for this vlog is Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. I thought this would be a good pick because it falls into fantasy romance. I don't think this is straight romantasy because there is does seem to be a like plot line outside of romance. This was a kind of hyped release. I know it was in at least one bookish subscription box. I have had some success with Elise Kova before in the past, but I've also found her to be kind of mid sometimes. So I think this is a good choice for this vlog. So in this book, we follow a character named Clara, I believe, and she has this ability to like ink tarot cards. I guess this is like the magic system that we are working with here. However, her magic or the fact that she's doing it is kind of illegal. I'm not sure exactly the rules, but she is not allowed to ink tarot cards, whatever that means. And so she gets arrested and she does find an opportunity to leave the prison if she works with the headmaster of this academy. And he has a good job for her. He wants her to help him create some sort of special tarot card that she has the ability to do because of her magic. Um, and she also has to pretend to be married to him. I'm not sure how that's gonna work when she's also like the student. So not necessarily like student teacher relationship. I don't know. Obviously, I haven't read the book, but this is what we are reading for this vlog. It's a one and done vlog. I haven't done a dedicated reading vlog and review in a hot minute. I did it for Mistborn and the Leviathan, the first book in the Expanse series. I think it's Leviathan Wakes. That was like a hyped up book vlog and review series. I could do that as well because I just found that really fun to do like a dedicated vlog for a single book as opposed to like reading like five in one. Anyways, but this is my copy. If you are interested in like the aesthetics of a book, this is like over 500 pages. The cover is kind of like a soft matte. The cover, I mean, is beautiful. The pages are kind of gold. This is what like the end pages look like. Kind of pretty, kind of simple. I personally don't mind a book looking boring if the prices will go down. But you know, whatever. Uh, this is what this is what the naked hardback looks like. And we do have some headers if the aesthetics of a book help you decide whether or not you want to buy it. That's what we're working with as well. So I will come back when I have an update. I'm probably going to do 100-page chunks. Since the book is over 500 pages, I think 5 check-ins should be good. And then, yeah, it's Monday. I do have a lot of chores to do. The house is disgusting. So we'll see when I can do my first check-in. But thank you so much for checking out the vlog. I will come back in a hot second. So I did end up finishing the first 100 pages of Arcana Academy. I think this is probably going to be like my first long check-in. I think my first and last check-in of this book will probably be the longest. So since I have to like go through a couple things for you, so bear with me. And then I have another like fun update. However, I think it would be fun to do a check-in, a star rating check-in every time I update to see like where I'm currently sitting with my feelings on this book. I would say right now a safe 4 stars for this book were it to end right now with like a satisfying ending, I think I would be okay with that. It's not groundbreaking writing or storytelling by any means. I feel like there's a lot of things here that people have read before and liked before, and if there's any like tropes in this that you've heard of that you're interested in, or you think like the tarot, an idea of like a tarot magic school is interesting to you, then I think that would be I think this would be a fine book. I've read Elise Kova before. I read her Air Awaken series and I liked that one a lot actually. But then I also read like a follow up series to that one, as well as her Married to Magic like deal with the Elf King, and I thought those were kind of mid. Her writing does lend itself well to like a very like soapy type of story. It's nothing like fantastic, groundbreaking at all. It's very straightforward, easily readable, and when there's a bit more dramatic moments, things that are like leaning into the enemies to lovers storyline, it can actually be kind of fun. So if that's something that you're interested in, maybe this book might be for you. It really does drop you at the beginning of the story. There's really no lead up. I mentioned before that our main character's in prison for illegal like magic activities, and that's where the story starts. Like she's in prison and she's getting dragged out of her cell to go meet someone, that person being our male main character, who propositions her with a chance to go to this academy, escape a life in the dungeons, and he asks her, forces her to like help him make this special tarot card that is not supposed to be like a thing, like it shouldn't exist at all. But he's like convinced it does exist, and he's convinced that she can help him because she's kind of um, made a reputation of herself as like this really talented arcanist outside of the school system. The only people allowed to do this tarot card magic are people within the school who have graduated from the school. The magic system is kind of interesting. It's not super intense or super like hard. All you really need to know is that each card in the tarot deck, the minor tarot deck, can do some sort of magic. Like the two of coins can do this, or the eight of swords can do that. I don't think you need to know much about tarot in general to like understand the magic system. It is kind of confusing when like the a character just randomly pulls out a card, and like I don't know what that does off the top of my head, but there is a glossary, at least in my book, where you can see what each individual card might do. So it's a lot of flipping back and forth, which I don't mind, but that might like ruin the flow for you if that's something that you feel like you have to do. There is a major plot point that I feel like if you squint at it hard enough, it would kind of fall apart. And I really hate when that happens. I can kind of see people getting away with it in middle grade or YA, but this is technically adult, maybe new adults. Our main character has to pretend to be a member of the like nobility, and she's also now betrothed to our male main character for the story, for the plot. They obviously hate each other. She hates everything that he represents. I feel like it didn't need to be a betrothal at this point. I don't see why that was necessary. And again, he is our male main character is the second son of a king. So like his older brother, like the king to be, could be like, wait, who is this? I've never heard of her. And they do kind of have an explanation as to like why she kind of came out of nowhere. She's like nobility, but like very, very distantly related to nobility. That's at least her cover story. His father, the king, could like step in and be like, my son is betrothed to someone and I didn't choose who it was. Okay, you can roll with it if you want to, but I feel like if you think about it too hard, like there might be some holes to like poke in there. Another thing that I personally don't love, that some people might care about or might not, it's just like a personal thing, is ages sometimes. And I know that fantasy worlds work different. Sometimes ages don't quite line up to the legacy that precedes the character. So I'm trying not to be spoilery here, but let's just say our male main character has a big reputation, being powerful, being scary, being this and the third, but he's like 23. And while that is technically an adult, the things that he's alleged to have done and the way people think about him and talk about him and how scared they are of him, um, it doesn't quite line up to me. And I know like you have books like the Game of Thrones books where those characters are all very young and they accomplish so much, but in general everyone in that book seems to be like aged down to like our expectations. The only person who's like exceeded those are this male main character. Everyone seems like a normal age for whatever they've done in their life. Like no one, like it's not normal for, you know, 15 or 16-year-olds to get married and have kids at a young age. That seems to be something that's still for like slightly older people. There's no one here who's like fairly young with a big reputation. Like I would it have killed the author to like make the character like 27 or something? No. Again, it's just like a pet peeve. It's not a big deal, but it's like it's something that I think about, and it kind of like ruins the vibe for me, if that makes sense. Again, that's just me. And for reference, our main character is 20, and I know that could have like made like an age gap romance. I don't listen. I'm 29. I don't care if there's like problematic aspects to a romance, especially when this is already enemies to lovers. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if that's like a hot take, but I understand in real life why like a 20-year-old might not want to be in a relationship with a 27-year-old. If the author had went with a slightly older character as opposed to like 23, it's fictional. You know what I mean? Exploring the bounds of a relationship in a fictional sense is like healthier than not, you know. But as far as the enemies to lovers storyline, I think I'm buying it so far well enough. There's nothing wrong with it. Like she has every right to hate this man because he is part of nobility, and a lot of things that have gone wrong in her life are in part because of like nobles and all that kind of stuff. So I get why she doesn't like him. For me though, when it comes to enemies to lovers, I like a bit more volleying back and forth to show how much each character like dislikes each other. And because she has quite literally like no power over him, she can't really hold anything over his head. She can't do anything. She can't volley back and forth. The most that she can do is kind of like be kind of a bitch, and if she wants to like maybe kick him in the nuts or something, but she can't do much. He has the power to just send her to a dungeon and make her work in a mine for the rest of her life. Like she has nothing to hold over his head. So it's kind of just her like saying how much she hates him. I would love to see like more action from her, but again, like what that action could be, I don't know, because she's very constrained. But I do feel like she wants to. She's not necessarily a doormat or anything. Character wise, she's not bad, but she also doesn't stand out either. She's fine for now. We'll see like how she grows as a character and how much more we get to see from her. She is very street smart. She does have a sense of compassion for the people who also grew up poor, you know, disenfranchised, that kind of thing. I'm going to quickly go back to the enemies to lovers, because I will note that the author is very good at like teasing a flirtation. It's not, they're not making out, they're not even holding hands. The most they've done is like he put his hand on her waist, but nothing over the top. I know people hate it, and I would as well hate when there's like an enemies to lovers but they're like making out like chapter 4 or something. That's not happening here, but the author does tease it a little bit with their actions and the things that they say to each other. But as a reader, I know that it's like gonna be an enemies to lover, so I'm expecting these teases, and the author does them well. Like I find them kind of like, you know, blushing. And in general, I do want to mention, when it comes to like school trial settings, I am very critical about like arbitrary deaths. I hate when, you know, a school or a trial competition is like, we can only accept 5 people and everyone else who fails has to die. I almost rarely, a lot of times the has to die part makes no sense to me. There's no reason why someone has to die. You decide why people die. They could just fail and go back to whatever lives they've had before. In this case, I can kind of see why you want to kill off students who like don't make your trials, or you want to send them to the dungeon if they fail or whatever. I can kind of buy it in this instance. That's another one of those things that you either have to like accept or not. One of those like plot points that like if you squint at it too hard, it just like might not make sense. You know what I mean? Really, really hate that in stories, and this book might not be for you. I can kind of accept the justifications in the plot so far. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the first 100 pages. I know it's a lot, but it's the introduction, so I have to touch on like plot, writing, characters, romance, all of it. But on a lighter, funner note, I did get my very first Illumicrate. I have never bought an Illumicrate before. I did try another subscription box. I wanted to try a few, maybe not concurrently because it does get expensive. Caffeine and Legends. I tried that for 3 months, and I do recommend it if you have A, the money because it's a little pricey, and B, you don't mind a more careful selection of items. I already know what the book is because I opened the box to see. This month's book is The Second Death of Locke by V.L. Bovalino. It's still in the glossy wrap, but that's what the cover looks like. I actually kind of prefer the original cover. This is what the edges look like. But I know this is a really hyped up release. I've seen a lot of people talking about it, adding it to their TBRs. I believe this book follows a lady knight who is protecting this mage male character, and together they have to like escort this baby somewhere, and there's like a warring plot line. I think she's in love with him, but he might not know. Maybe like unrequited love. It is supposed to be an epic fantasy romance story. I believe there might be 3 books in this series. Obviously, just the first came out, so this is what I received this week. I thought since I got it in the filming of this, I'd show you what it was. So that is my first check in. I will be back when I have something else to talk about. I'm starving though. I need to eat something. So peace. Ignore this, what's going on. But I did finish the next 100 or so pages of Arcana Academy. I don't have much more to add on than what I've already talked about. Also, nail polish. The writing is still very like readable. Like it's quite easy to like fly through this book. Maybe because like the font size is like not that small and like there's huge margins. So like it's pretty easy to get through. It's pretty easy to get through this book. Our main character is not that she's super badly written, but I do have some like conflicting feelings about like where the story is going and what we're like actually getting and what is like successful in the story and what we are getting as like a reader. Our main character, the one thing that she wants the most is freedom. Like she has been under one, she grew up in poverty, so that's not a very freeing feeling. But then she is in prison for about a year because of what she's done. And then now that she's out of prison, she's essentially in another prison, forced to like be at this school at the command of her fake fiance prince character. So she doesn't really have that much freedom, which I totally get that frustration. And she's also looking for a sister. I won't go too much into the sister plot line because it could be spoilery, but she does have a sister. Her sister's essentially the only family member that she has left, so naturally she like wants to be with her sister and like find her, and she can't because of her obligations to the prince and this, you know, school or whatever. And that's what we were told. Those are her main motivations. However, I get so much passion and character from her while she's at the school learning properly about this magic system that she's like naturally good at, but she doesn't actually have the foundational knowledge about. She's only really learned, you know, in like back alleys or whatever you want to call it. And that's where the story succeeds, like in a school setting. It's jarring to like get the satisfaction from a cool fantasy school setting, but then we also have like we're also like getting something completely different from our main character, and I can tell like she just wants to be a student, or that's what I'm getting. Like I feel like this story would just flow so much better if our character was just like wanting to be a student and like wanting to learn this magic and be like the best that she could be, instead of this like I need freedom storyline, blah blah blah. Which like again, not that I fault her for, like I totally get it, but it's just like that's not where the story is excelling personally. Plot wise, we're kind of getting some interesting reveals and some like interesting additions to this world. One thing that has been talked about is that's not quite clear to me and it's kind of shaky is the history of this country. And I said before, I love world building, I love lore, like give me the like as much as you can. Some things are not adding up to me, or maybe I need a proper timeline or something, because the author has referenced before like different, I guess like kingdoms that have been in control of this country. We are currently in the, I forgot what the king's family is called, the Oracalis family, whatever. But the author has mentioned other um, families that have ruled and have fallen before the current system that's in place. And sometimes the author makes it seem like this previous kingdom, this previous family was like centuries ago. But then I only remember that the school itself was founded like 5 years ago or something. So this might be like it probably is like a me thing, like timeline wise. I'm not getting, because the author also referenced that the magic system was like more restrictive in the past, but now it's not, in a different way, but still is. Basically, she's kind of referencing like changes in policy and laws and things like that, which again, I love world building, but it's not, on one hand, again, like the author makes it seem like it happened so long ago, but then I don't think this family's been in power for that long either. Timeline wise, I'm not, like, it's kind of shaky. Yeah, that just might be like a me thing. Or something that the author could have like done better at kind of explaining or whatever. Oh, I did mention that I would give like star rating updates per section, like what I would give if the book were to stop right now. Right now I'm at a 3.5. Just like plot and world building stuff is not super cohesive and like strong. I would love to see like the author's like notes, however they put together the information on this world. I'm not saying that there isn't like good foundations and things that the author is holding true, but we are already kind of getting some things that we were told weren't true before. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this can't happen in the magic system that we have. And in the next 100 pages, then that's kind of like untrue, what I had learned in the previous 100 pages. And again, the author could like change things and like have reveals and stuff, and that's totally fine, but it's not super grounded sometimes. And then sometimes it is. I hope that kind of makes sense. Basically, to summarize, the magic system, the world building is kind of shaky. Like it's on like some really rickety wooden beams. And I wish it was just a bit more reinforced with the story in some way. First of all, sorry the lighting is horrible. Someone's in my room right now and taking up my private space. Anyways, what was it? Okay, I did end up reading the next 300 or the next 100 pages. I'm at about 306, I think is when the chapter break is, and the plot is progressing quite nicely. Like it's fine, there's nothing wrong. There's the things that I would expect in like a school setting type of story. One thing that the author I think did do better on is addressing the problems that I had in the last check-in, where our character is so verbally telling us that she wants freedom and she wants to find her sister. Like that's the most important thing for her, which I understand. I get it. She, grew up on the streets. That makes sense for her character. But what we are getting from her character and from the actual, like, from the writing perspective, the school setting, learning as much about this tarot magic or whatever is the most interesting part. Writing wise, like, our author does that part well, and our character seems to really enjoy learning more about this craft that she's like kind of naturally good at, but she's never had the formal training for. So we got to the part of a story where her desires and being in this school are kind of like now come together as one, if that makes sense. So narratively it doesn't feel off, so that's a bit better. I'm still at a 3.5 because it's not wowed me, and there's nothing that has been given to me that's made up for that 0.5 deduction that I made earlier. As far as romance goes, I know eventually that they were going to be romantic, so I can't really I just wish that there was more like enemies aspect, a bit more animosity. And there still kind of is, like, they do banter back and forth, which is like funny and witty. I just wish, like I said before, that she had more agency to be an enemy as well, but she doesn't really have any power, so she can't really do anything to like threaten him the way that he has some power over her. There's not a lot of balling back and forth, which I think is really important in an enemies to lovers, or at least the enemies to lovers that I like. So that's just like a me thing. It's a preference thing. It progresses like how you would think an enemies to lovers in an academic setting would. So it's not anything standout, but it's not bad or anything so far. So that's my check-in. It's not, we're still kind of going through the motions. We're like in the middle of this. At this point, I kind of already know what I'm going to say about this book when I finish, but unless there's like a really explosive ending that kind of blows my socks off, I have an idea. Like, I've already have like the outline of like the formal review I'm gonna do once I'm done vlogging this part of the video. So the next 100 pages, I'll check in at around 400, whatever, whenever the next chapter around page 400 ends. Sorry. Also, sorry for the lighting. I hate this part of my house, but it's the only place I have privacy right now. So I recently got to the next, well, I've reached the next 100 or so pages. I think I'm on page 407. So I only have one more check-in before I do like the sit down review. I would say this last section was really focused on moving the plot forward, which is great. Obviously, we want the story to continue on. I think one of the biggest critiques that like fantasy gets nowadays is that there's not a lot of editing going on, which is a completely fair critique to have. I personally, when it comes to fantasy, like higher fantasy, which this is, it doesn't take place in our world. It's a very different magic system that I'm used to. It's tarot based. I don't mind a little bit more meandering, a little bit more useless plot moments in the book. I know that for some readers, a lot of the book needs to be plot focused, which is fair and fine. I'm never minded if we've gotten like 50 to 100 extra pages of like stuff, of fluff, of padding. It helps me sit in the world better. If you're wondering like how that's been so far, I would say like pages 200 to 300 is not really plot focused, but 300 to 400 is. Romance is a big part of the story. This is fantasy romance. The story could exist without the romance, but it is a good chunk of it. And as you can imagine, with it being marketed as like enemies to lovers, I believe, or maybe rival, forced, what's it called? Enemies to lovers, if not maybe, what's that other trope? Reluctant allies to lovers. The loving part is going to happen soon. Now, this is not, I mean, I don't know if you would consider this a spoiler, but we have not done anything overtly physical so far. So if you're worried about spice and things moving too fast, we're okay so far. There's a lot of banter, which I appreciate. I love banter. I love a play on words. I love people being witty with what they say, which this author is doing well enough. Like there are some moments, some verbal sparring that I do really appreciate. It really like builds the like enemies, reluctant allies aspect of the story. But we haven't really got anything super spicy yet. So if that's something that deters you or encourages you for to pick up this book, go for it. I'm not like super against spice. I'm an adult, I it exists and it is what it is. Though I do understand people's aversion to it, not because they're like prudes or anything, but because sometimes if the spice is all you're working towards, it kind of feels that way. We are getting some growth in the relationship, in my opinion. As someone who doesn't read a ton of like romance forward fantasy books, that's just my take. I think Clara as a character, while she isn't something that I haven't read before, she doesn't stand out among some of my favorite female like fantasy main characters. I do think that she is showing a bit of her personality, her morals, what she believes in, especially in this section. I do think that people might not like her because of the choices that she makes and some of the things that she believes in. And she is flawed, but I think that's really important to have a flawed character. She can't be perfect. She can't be like a very like audience aware type character where she's like made for the audience to like her and love her. Like, she's flawed and that's okay for me. It's okay for me. Like, I'm not going to hold it against her. She's very young and she's very emotionally forward right now because of things that's happened in the story. Like, she's very much driven by her emotions right now. And that can be really frustrating if you, the reader, are very pragmatist and you're like, well, you're being selfish or whatever. I get it. I get her. One thing that kind of struck me um, as I was reading this, and I haven't really brought it up too much, is that there's mentions of this like fantasy, like the history of this fantasy world that we've gotten hints of. And I might have mentioned that it's a little confusing, that maybe I would have liked like a timeline or something, because I'm not sure how long this family's been in power. They've talked about having conflicts between houses or like major lords, like their families and stuff. And they've also talked about previous kingdoms that have ruled over this land and how the magic worked. And it was kind of like not, I don't know if it was badly explained or I just didn't get it, but I have a feeling that because a lot of fantasy romance authors like doing sequel series or companion series, I feel like that might be a possible option for this author that they might want to explore this world in a different series, either the historical period that I don't quite understand, and maybe that's kind of why it feels a little vague with not concrete details, or something else within this world, because there is a lot that the author has hinted at as far as how things work here and have worked in the past that they might want to explore. I just have a feeling because it's such a, and I don't mean this in a bad, I mean, it sounds like a bad thing to say, but it's like a easy, like kind of cash grab. If you already have a built in audience, and let's say the series gets really popular, which it was in at least one fantasy subscription box service, and at least Kova is very popular, that it's a easy transition to get more, you get your built-in audience to go from this series whenever she wraps it up to another one. It's an option. Have I think she has the foundations for like a sequel series or a companion series. That's pretty much it on my major thoughts so far. Nothing's really wowed me still. It's not bad, and depending on how this wraps up, endings are really important to me in a fantasy series. I could see this going back to a 4 star, but we're still pretty set in a 3.5. Like it's not bad at all. Like I'm not hating anything at all. It just feels like a completely like fine, fun little novel that nothing stands out in any sense of the word when it comes to characters, when it comes to romance, plot. If anything, maybe the like tarot card magic is really cool and interesting, but at this point we're not super focused on like the school like learning and all that kind of stuff that I know a lot of people love with school settings, is like learning the magic alongside the character, but our character already kind of knew some of this magic. So now she's really focused on this main plot that she's been roped into as opposed to like the school stuff. So that's where I'm at with the book. I will check in one more time before I have to sit down and do the review. So be right back. So I'm at page like 508, 506, something like that. This is the last check in before I do like my formal like review sit down. I would say everything up until this point from page 400 to 500 has been pretty purposeful in terms of plotting and stuff. I mentioned editing in the last section. I do feel like it's tighter around this area, which is great. I know that's like a big critique that people have for books in general, specifically in the fantasy genre right now. Some really strong moments. There's like a formal dueling practice in this world where, you know, if you know how to use these cards and you have like a dueling um custom, and we got one dueling scene, and I did like it. I think one of the things with like action scenes, and this is like the closest that you get to an action scene, is that you have to be detailed enough to like let the reader know exactly visually what is happening. But since there's not usually a lot of words in action scenes, like people aren't saying a lot, they're just doing actions, and it has to be detailed enough but not too cluttered that you're kind of overwhelmed with words. It's like a fine line. And I think the author did a good job. As someone who has struggled with like actiony, heavy type scenes like that, we've gotten some reveals with the story that feel like they were placed without much build up. I don't want to obviously spoil anything, but something that does sometimes frustrate me with like any book in general, and sometimes I see this with like thrillers, is that we are given information that like, uh, where did this come from? I feel like I've been blindsided, and maybe I guess that kind of makes sense for the character since it's like a reveal for them as well. But it doesn't feel great to have like another element, another factor to keep in mind in the story when we have had none of that so far. Like for a majority of this book, I've known who the players are. Like I've known who the threats to Clara's life are, and who are her allies. And now we've got another player in the game, so to speak, and I don't like that. I don't like that suddenly like a new person enters the villa vibe, if that kind of makes sense. I don't know if I would call it lazy writing, but it's just not great for me personally. And the only other thing that I do want to mention before I finish up this clip, so if you want to skip over, you can. I don't consider it spoilery. I think other romantasy readers, not that I consider myself a romantasy reader, but other people who talk about romance do mention this. I don't consider it a spoiler, but if you want to skip ahead to the formal sit down review, we have gotten to the point where there is a spice scene between our love interests. The author did call this slow burn. Do I consider it slow burn if they have interactions in the first book? No. I personally don't. Other people do. That being said, the slow burn or the spice or whatever happened within the last 100 pages of the book. So it is kind of like towards the end. There's been two spicy scenes so far. And again, towards the end of the book, this wasn't earlier at all. Um, I would say they're fairly explicit. Again, I don't really mind that. It just depends on how it comes about, how the author kind of, you know, builds up the romance and the tension. They're fine. They're good. I guess, like, I don't know what the standards are, like what you might consider good and what I would consider good. Fairly spicy, I guess, if I had to. Well, I'll just describe that it's fairly explicit, vulgar language, and detailed um, parts going up to other parts, and the author's very descriptive with it. So that is what we have spice so far. Again, I don't consider this spoilery. Most people talk about this whether a book has it or not, but I just thought I'd mention that it's not. I wouldn't consider it slow burn since um, it's still the first book, and this is, I think, supposed to be three books at least. I think that's pretty much it that I have to touch on before I get on to the next section. I can feel that some things are about to go down. I feel that some crazy shit is about to happen. So we will see how I feel. The ending could totally change my perspective of this book. Right now, I am sitting at a 3.5, and um I am thinking of moving up to a 4 depending on the ending. So we will see. I mean, if the ending's fantastic, maybe this could be a 5. Probably not, but a 4.5 is not completely out of the picture either. So that's where I'm sitting right now. I would like to finish this vlog soon and get up on into other videos that I have to do. I need to do a book haul. I need to do what I want to read in October tentatively. The finally fall book tag I've seen people do, and I'd like to do that as well. So I will get back in the next clip to talk about like everything, like officially review style. Bye. Okay, so I have finished Arcana Academy, and here are my formal like review thoughts. If you're just stopping by and you skipped over the vlog, which is totally fine, by the way, I truly don't mind. I get it. I think I'm pretty firmly and have been pretty firmly thinking about giving this book 3.5 stars. It's not bad, and I didn't have like a bad time whatsoever reading this. It's just amongst its contemporaries, what it's doing, the tropes that it's using that other books have done before, it's not really super stand out. I feel like I personally would have a hard time seeing many readers say that this is their book of the year. This is the one that stands out the most. I feel like I've seen and like heard of books that do something similar to this. Again, plot wise, we are following a character named Clara who has been creating these tarot cards, which is how the magic in this world takes place. She's not allowed to do it because she's not noble and she hasn't been formally trained. So she gets arrested, thrown in jail, and the second prince gives her an opportunity to leave prison, pretend to be his wife or his betrothed, and go to school to Arcana Academy. And it's a very cutthroat school. People could die, that kind of thing. We have alongside that a kind of um, plot line that we've seen before where you have a really shitty king and a really unfair kingdom, and rebellion rebel stuff happens, which again we've heard of and we've seen before. And not to say that any of that's bad, I love rebels as much as the next person. Yeah, again, not much really stood out. The only reason why I would like recommend this is if you're genuinely interested in this tarot style magic, which I don't see a lot of. I do know that I think Masks of Mirrors, if I remember correctly, I did read the first book in that series, has a tarot based magic system as well. And I know tarot's pretty popular, so maybe that's something that will be a trend coming forward in the fantasy genre. For me, that's the only reason I would recommend this if you're really interested in different types of magic. I also mentioned before, as far as like the magic and the world goes, I do feel like it was a little bare in some parts. I mentioned in the vlog that I feel like there are references to the history of this world, elements of this world that aren't really touched upon, and I feel like there might be reasons for that. Not every question needs to be answered in book one, but when it comes to the history and the foundation of this world, it was pretty shaky, and that goes along with plot as well. I feel like a lot of this story is being held up by sticks, by toothpicks, as opposed to a strong foundation. Getting Clara out of prison and pretending that she is the betrothed to the prince, that's a pretty far-fetched thing that we have to accept, as well as like the people of this world. And I'm not saying that it can be done, obviously it can with like a really great writer, and it was kind of shaky at best. I feel like there were many points in the story where if you kind of squint hard enough or you question hard enough, some things kind of fall apart. In order to maximize my enjoyment, which is very important to me as a reader, I do have to kind of like gloss over some things and not think about certain plot beats a little too hard. I know a lot of people are interested in like the school aspect of this, as was I. A lot of people love school settings. I love school settings. I don't know how much more of the school setting we'll get after this first book, and we did get a good chunk of it throughout this book. You know, Clara was pretty much training in the school amongst her peers with teachers for the most part. But going forward, I don't know how much that's going to be an aspect of the story. I liked it for what it was. Could we have gone more? Maybe, but this wasn't like a cozy school type book. I think from the get go, you're pretty much promised like a rebel type storyline. As far as characters go, Clara is a very confused individual, and I do think that in some parts it is purposeful. She wants a lot that she can't have in life, growing up poor, growing up on the run, being imprisoned. She wants a lot and she can't have everything, and I know she knows that. So she kind of goes back and forth with some of her motivations. Sometimes she's believing in this side and is supporting the side, and then some moments she's not. And she does go back and forth a lot. And I do kind of give her some grace because she is so young and she does have a lot of reveals given to her that put her in a very emotional state. I don't want to tell you what those reveals are for obvious reasons, but she does have to deal with a lot of information that is given to her throughout this book that is, it would be a lot of people, it would be a lot for anyone to handle. And because she's so in the middle of this entire plot, I do give her grace. Is it frustrating? I think so. I think a lot of people would have some frustrations with her character. It just depends on who you are as a reader, how much you can take. I'm okay with her. She's not a bad character to follow. I understand her motivations. I understand that she gets frustrated or she does things that seem kind of flip floppy. As far as our male love interest, he is a brooding prince. If you've read one of these like broody prince characters with dark hair that's so dark it's almost purple, um, not bad, but if you've read one, you've kind of read them all sometimes, honestly. So, as far as writing goes, very easily readable. It's very YA friendly writing. This author has written YA before, and that's like the only thing I've really enjoyed from her is that YA like Air Awaken series that she did. She is able to propel the story forward pretty well. Like I was eager to just keep flipping the pages. Getting through 100 page sections was pretty easy for me. It reminded me of, and I'm not saying that they approach fantasy the same way, so please do not come for me because I know how some of y'all like to tussle, but like Brandon Sanderson is very easily readable. And again, they approach fantasy in different ways. I'm not saying that they're the same like caliber of writing or anything like that. Maybe you enjoy Elise Kova more than Brandon Sanderson, or vice versa. That's totally your prerogative. But it was very easily readable. I remember reading Brandon Sanderson for the first time, at least Mistborn. I'm sure maybe The Way of Kings is like way different writing wise, but when I first read Mistborn, I was like, oh, this is like fun and very digestible in like a YA way. I'm not insulting him. Please don't get mad in the comments. But it's a very fun read, easy to read. And like I said, she can really push the story forward. Even if you're not like loving it, I still felt compelled to like push forward because I was having fun, which is the most important to me. As far as the romance goes, this was an enemies to lovers. It was marketed as slow burn. And is it really slow burn if they kind of fool around by book one? That's up for you to decide. To be fair, it was towards like the last 100 pages. So comparatively sure it is, I guess. I wasn't in love with the romance, but I didn't hate it. I understood, again, I understood Claire's feelings and her reluctance towards this guy and his reluctance towards her and everything like that. I'm not, romance in general is the hardest to please me. I usually don't hate the romance unless it's like glaringly horrible. But most of the time, I'm kind of ambivalent towards it, which is unfortunate because this is fantasy romance. There's a story without the romance, but it is still an important part of the story. And they're fine. I wouldn't hate it if like they didn't end up together. They probably will because it's a romance, but I'm not like gonna stay up at night kicking my feet thinking about how beautiful this romance is that I've never read anything like it before. I have read things like this before and that's okay. So last thing I want to touch on is the ending. If you don't want to hear anything about the ending, I'm not going to spoil anything major, but if you don't want to know anything about the ending, that's totally fine. Thank you for stopping by. Um, I will see you in another video. But if you want to say and like hear my thoughts about the ending, I think it was very explosive. There's a lot of reveals, a lot of big moments happening pretty quickly. It's one of those endings where everything just kind of comes together and there's a ton of stuff happening. I mentioned how I'm not a big fan of random players getting added to the story that have not existed before, especially towards the end of the story. I think as we are getting through the beginning and like the middle part of the story, sure, introduce new characters, new threats, new players, but towards the end, it kind of feels like very frustrating for another thing to be added on. And that's kind of what we've had to deal with towards the end. And I'm not a big fan of that. It just feels like crunchy writing almost. But the ending was a lot. And that was the only thing that I was holding out for to maybe bump this back up to 4 stars because it did start at a 4 star for me, but it was an explosive ending. So maybe if you like those types of endings, you wouldn't mind it, or you might even like rate it higher than I did. Maybe I know I have different standards and you have your own standards when you read a fantasy, but yeah, I think those are pretty much all my thoughts. Oh, one thing that I do want to mention is that there are many points in the story that I wish Clara pushed harder for. It felt like every time that there was something odd or ominous told to Clara or something that she saw or had a question about, like there was no curiosity in her. I felt like she could have pushed harder with a lot of people to kind of give her some answers because there are so many questions that she's been asking throughout this entire book and she never gets answers for a lot of them. And I would expect more chutzpah from her, more like let's get down to business. But she doesn't. It's kind of frustrating. I forgot to mention that, but yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts on Arcana Academy. Again, overall, it's a okay book. It's not bad. I'm not hating my time with it. I'm never sad about reading, even if I don't like a book. For $32.99, I'd recommend borrowing it from the library, buying it secondhand off of Pango or Mercari, eBay, whatever. Completely fine. It just doesn't wow me. I think other books have probably done something similar, probably better. But yeah, if you've read this book, let me know what your thoughts are. Maybe they're completely different. Maybe you have higher standards and rated this lower. I like to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. I will also link my social medias down below as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's all cool with me. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.